Today on CityCast DC, Virginia made history this week swearing in its first female governor. Democrats now hold the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. A new legislative session is also getting underway, and from affordability issues to a major redistricting fight, there is a lot on the agenda. Michael Pope of the Virginia Press Room podcast and Virginia Public Radio joins us to explain this session. Today's Thursday, January 22nd. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Michael Pope, welcome back to the show. I know there's a lot going on. We're catching you live from the press room in the General Assembly building in Virginia, so a lot happening. If you hear chatter in the background, that's what's going on. Michael, thanks for being here.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
We kind of think of you as our Virginia whisperer. We've got a new legislative session in Virginia. This comes after a big election where all 100 seats and the governor were up. How did everything end up panning out in Virginia?
Well, the Democrats got a huge new majority. So they previously had a one-seat majority in the House, a one-seat majority in the Senate. This most recent election gave them a 64-seat majority. So it's 64 Democrats versus 36 Republicans. So my math is not great, but that's like 2-1, something like that. And they still have the one-seat majority in the Senate. But now they've got a 14-seat majority in the House now that they picked up 13 seats. And so that's a huge majority that they're going into this session with the trifecta. They got a control of the House, a huge majority in the House, a one-seat majority in the Senate, and of course, Abigail Spanberger in the executive.
It was pretty exciting watching her get sworn in. She did it in her white suffragette suit. They kept panning to Douglas Wilder in the audience, who was, when I was growing up in Virginia, that's who was the governor of Virginia and is very prominent in my mind. It was pretty exciting. Now that the Dems have this trifecta, how do you see them governing?
Well, we saw a little bit of that in the inaugural speech that Governor Spanberger made over the weekend. She took some shots at the Trump administration, although important to point out, she never said his name, but the implications were really clear as she was talking about an administration that is gilding buildings while schools crumble. I think everybody knows what she was talking about there. Or another part of the speech where she talked about our hardworking, law-abiding immigrant neighbors who will know that when we say we focus on security and safety, we are talking about all of our neighbors, and we mean them too. So that was also a shot at the Trump administration's immigration agenda. So in terms of Spanberger and what's on her agenda here, it's the word of the year, affordability. Everybody's talking about affordability. And so the House Dems, the Senate Dems, the Spanberger administration are focused on affordable housing and expanding home ownership, contraception, paid sick leave, prescription drug prices, utility bills, childcare credits. So this is, affordability is a kind of larger bucket of stuff that the Dems are throwing a lot of different issues into.
Has this trifecta ever happened in the past? And if it did, what did it look like then?
Yeah, pretty recently. So when Northam was governor, the Dems had control of the House and the Senate and the governor's office. And that was kind of a brief period of time, but the Dems were in total control for the 2020 session and the 21 session. And they were actually able to pass a lot of stuff that had been kind of on the agenda for Dems for a long time, for many years, but they were unable to accomplish any of that because the Republicans sort of stopped them. There was a lot of stuff they weren't able to accomplish. And one of the things that's going to dominate a lot of discussion this year is labor issues, specifically Virginia's controversial right to work law, which prohibits employers from requiring union membership as a condition of employment. There is a state senator who wants to overturn that, Senator Jennifer Carroll Foy of Prince William County, and she's introduced the bill. It does seem like it's going to get a hearing in the Senate and maybe even get to Governor Spanberger's desk, but she repeatedly said she's not interested in overturning the right to work law and even In a speech to a joint assembly earlier this week, she reiterated her opposition to overturning the right to work. So there's probably going to be a lot of discussion about it, but it seems unlikely it's going to get anywhere in the Spanberger administration.
It's interesting. So, we have these labor issues. You mentioned affordability earlier. What do you see the new lawmakers as sort of broadly looking to accomplish?
Well, I mean, again, everybody is really focused on affordability, kitchen table issues. They want to end this session with a list of accomplishments. And so things like paid sick leave. This is something that the Democrats have tried to do a long time. The last time they had the trifecta, they were unable to do paid sick days. So now that they've got the trifecta again, they'll be coming back around to that. Childcare tax credits, and all kinds of things on affordable housing. For example, one of them would give local governments the authority to require developers produce a certain level of affordable housing. So, for example, a developer comes to your local board of supervisors or city council and wants to develop a huge new building of luxury apartments. The local government could say, well, hey, developer, at least 10% of your building or 11% of your building must be affordable housing. So the way Virginia works is the local governments would need authority to do that, explicit authority given to them. So that is, one of the many types of things that the Democrats are talking about under their affordability agenda.
And there's a new minimum wage in Virginia now, right?
Yeah. In fact, just recently, the General Assembly approved a way for the minimum wage to increase automatically based on the economy. So for a long time, anytime the minimum wage went up, the General Assembly had to pass a bill specifically to increase it. Now it's automatic, based on triggers in the economy. So yeah, it just went up in January, and the part of the affordability agenda is to raise it again. So I think we could definitely see legislation signed by Governor Spanberger to increase the minimum wage. That's definitely part of the affordability agenda, along with other bills involving housing and paid sick leave and even contraception they're talking about as an affordability issue.
I mean, that makes sense to me. It is a kitchen table issue that helps families economically plan for their futures.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it goes to show you how far-reaching an affordability agenda is, that it could cover everything from zoning issues in your local government to reproductive rights.
What about ACA subsidies?
Yeah. So Virginia is on the hook here to pick up a lot of the kind of social service spending that the Trump administration has pulled back on. So the budget fight is going to be something to watch this General Assembly session, because the Dems who run the House and the Senate really want to make sure that everybody receives the social services that they need. And in order to do that, Virginia is going to have to pick up the bill for the stuff the federal government is no longer paying for. So that is definitely something to watch as the budgeting goes forward. Virginia actually has a 2-year budget. And so we're on the second year of the budget, which some people colloquially call the caboose budget, because it's not the front of the train, it's the back of the train. So they're going to be talking about the caboose budget this year. And that is one of the main drivers. I guess it's ironic to call it the driver of the caboose budget, but is uncertainty in Washington, and how the caboose budget is going to need to pick up the slack and make sure that everybody who needs those social services gets them. So that's definitely an issue to watch as this General Assembly session moves forward and the lawmakers and the money committees present the governor with the budget.
Don't miss Folger Theater's 4th annual Reading Room Festival, on stage January 22nd through the 25th at the Folger Shakespeare Library. Join us as we collaboratively re-envision Shakespeare's works, explore the vibrant musicality of Shakespeare's verses, and reimagine the stories crafted by other early modern playwrights in this 4-day festival of staged readings, panel discussions, workshops, and community celebrations. This year's lineup features works from Alexa Babakania, Alberto Bonilla, Barbara Fuchs, and Marcus Gardley, with Arena Stage's artistic director, Hannah S. Sharif, directing one staged reading. Celebrate the spirit of collaborative theater making and community with the Folger. Enjoy all the festival has to offer for only $125 by purchasing an all-access pass at folger.edu/reading room. Get yours today. So I have been seeing these conversations about redistricting fights happening all over the country. What's happening with them in Virginia?
Yeah, so Virginia is one of the blue states that is now involved in a redistricting fight. There is a constitutional amendment that has already been passed by the General Assembly. In fact, the Democrats who run the House and the Senate knocked this out in the first 3 days of the session before Spanberger was even inaugurated. So while Glenn Youngkin was still governor, the Democrats actually cranked out not one, not two, not three, but four constitutional amendments, one of which was setting up a redistricting. And so the way this works, sort of from a procedural standpoint, is the General Assembly has to pass it, and then there has to be an election, and the General Assembly has to pass it again, and then it goes to voters. So the constitutional amendment to do a redistricting has already been passed twice by the previous General Assembly and this General Assembly, which means it will be going to voters in a special statewide referendum that will happen in April. So put that on your calendar, because everybody in Virginia is going to vote in April as to whether or not to redistrict Virginia, which right now the districts, technically you would say it's bipartisan redistricting, but I always think of it actually as nonpartisan redistricting, because the current map for the congressional districts and also all the General Assembly districts were drawn by an academic in California who had no allegiance to the Dems or the Republicans, and drew the maps based on geography and jurisdictional lines and that sort of thing. So the current map is anti-gerrymandered. It's as ungerrymandered as could possibly be. Now what the Democrats are talking about is gerrymandering it for the Democrats to harm Republicans.
Michael, go ahead and put pencil in on your calendar that we're going to bring you back in April to talk about this when it actually goes down, because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and there was some discussion about, okay, so you're going to have the special statewide referendum in April for this one constitutional amendment. What about the other three? Those also have to go to voters as well. So the plan right now is to have a special statewide referendum in April for the redistricting amendment. But there are three more constitutional amendments that the voters have to decide. And those are on abortion rights, voting rights, and gay rights, and like gay marriage. Taking out the constitutional prohibition on gay marriage that is still in the Virginia Constitution, this amendment would take that out. And so there was some thought about, hey, we're going to have this April statewide referendum on this constitutional amendment. Maybe that April statewide referendum should have all four constitutional amendments instead of just the redistricting one. I think they decided against doing that. The Democrats were all over the map on the logic behind this, but one of them is for abortion rights, making sure that abortion rights are protected and can't be eroded, and actually putting that in the Constitution so a future governor would not be able to erode abortion rights. Well, that's, as you might imagine, very popular. And so there were lots of people who were thinking, gosh, when I'm on the ballot in November, I sure want the abortion amendment to also be on the ballot, because that's going to drive out a lot of people to the polls. So part of the logic behind not having the abortion amendment on the ballot in April is that it actually might help Democrats in terms of turnout in November.
Again, just goes to show how popular some of these issues are. I feel like with abortion rights, we've been told it's so divisive, very unpopular. But the fact that Dems are thinking this way should go to show that that's not really the case.
It is extremely popular. The polling on this is off the charts. And anytime there's any kind of referendum on the ballot on abortion rights, it always drives out a lot of voters. And so, the part of this issue with the constitutional amendment is that the Democrats know putting this on the ballot will drive out turnout, and that actually might end up helping them flip some of these Republican congressional districts blue.
So these legislative sessions are 60 days a pop. How do you see this one ending?
Well, the 60-day session is what they call the long session, which is in the even years. The odd years actually has the much shorter session. So the 60-day session, it feels short, feels kind of brief, but in the grand scheme of things, it's actually the longer session. Yeah, I mean, usually what happens is a lot of bills are introduced, most of them die, and some of them get to the governor's desk. I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see how much stuff gets to the governor's desk that she doesn't like, or that she might be in a position where she's got to veto it. So we talked earlier about the bill to repeal the right to work law. In Virginia, this is a very big, important labor issue. It seems kind of likely that the bill overturning right to work is going to get to her desk. What does she do then? Does she veto it? Clearly, she doesn't want to overturn the right to work law. Does she just not take any action at all and it kind of goes away quietly? That's something to watch. There are also potential bills on immigration that she might be uncomfortable signing. So, like, for example, there are bills that prohibit ICE officials from entering courthouses to arrest people or entering certain parts of academic institutions like, college campuses, classrooms, hospitals. There are bills that prevent ICE agents from wearing masks and open them up to civil liability if they do. And so these are the kinds of things that the Democrats in the House and Senate might be interested in putting on her desk. But is she in a position to sign them? We don't know.
It might be too early to ask this, but what do you think we could expect in the next legislative session?
Wow, the next gosh, my head is kind of still wrapped around this one. Well, now next year is an election year. Every year is an election year, right? So this election year for 2026 is a congressional year, but 2027 would be setting up all of the stuff for the next General Assembly election. So that's when all the members of the House of Delegates will be on the ballot and all of these state senators will be on the ballot next year. So there are 40 seats in the state Senate. They will all be up for election next year. 100 seats in the House. They will all be up for re-election or election next year. So, I mean, I would say if you're looking forward to 2027, I can't believe I'm saying that, but yeah, if you're looking forward to 2027, that's the thing that you would want to keep in mind is it's an election year for all of the members of the General Assembly.
I know our listeners are sick of talking about it. I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of hearing about it. But something that makes Virginia, D.C., Maryland unique is that close proximity to Trump and D.C. Are there things that are connected to that you're kind of looking out for as this legislative session opens?
Well, yeah, going back to the immigration issue, I mean, because it struck me that Spanberger featured this so prominently in her inauguration speech, taking aim at the Trump administration, saying that Virginia's, from her language here, hardworking, law-abiding immigrant neighbors will know that when we say that we focus on security and safety, we mean all of our neighbors, and that means them too. And so, to be so explicit in her inaugural address, taking on the Trump administration and their immigration policy, it does kind of seem like I get the sense that the members of the General Assembly are interested in passing legislation on immigration, specifically ICE, what they call ICE out bills, putting limitations on immigration officials in terms of what they can do in courthouses and hospitals and schools. And so that's something that's, we actually don't really have a solid grasp on how Spanberger might react to that kind of legislation. So, and I know that the lawmakers who are working on this are trying to figure out the right strategy to make it happen. And I know they're working on the right strategy because they don't want to talk to me about it yet on the radio because they don't want to endanger the strategy that they're putting together. But of course, I want to talk to them and get audio for the radio. So I actually am engaged in negotiations with the lawmakers who are doing this just to get their voices on the radio talking about it.
Yeah, as somebody that lives in the district and watched all this go down twice with our mayor here in the city, it's delicate. I just know that. And I guess for you, as somebody who is invested in telling the story of it and covering it, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, their media strategy is different than my media strategy, right? Like my media strategy is tell as much of the story as I possibly can and get as much audio as I can. From their perspective, they're more interested in, well, if talking about it on the radio right now at this hour is going to in any way jeopardize the deals they're trying to strike, they might be reluctant to talk to me. This is actually a fight that I was having right before I started recording this podcast with you. I was actually talking to one of the members of the House of Delegates who's working on a number of bills on this, and he was reluctant to let me turn my microphone on.
Well, Michael Pope, thank you for always kind of knowing all of the ins and outs of what's going on in Virginia. We cannot wait to have you back.
Great. Thank you so much.
That is all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. And if you like shows like this one, become a CityCast DC neighbor. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.